Many years ago, there lived a young woman named Zane. She was a woman of substance, filled with kindness and a heart so generous that those around her often took for granted. She was in love with Osi, a man who had dreams larger than his pockets. He had ambition, yes, but ambition did not buy food or pay rent. Still, Zane saw something in him that no one else did. While others scoffed at his lofty dreams, she believed, and that belief led her to make sacrifices that no one could understand. Day after day, she worked tirelessly at an old eatery. She spent her hours scrubbing greasy pans, waiting tables, and ensuring customers left satisfied. The pay was meager, just enough to afford a one-room apartment where Osi crept into with style and lived with her because he couldn't afford his rent. It was small, cramped, and barely furnished, but it was home. She denied herself the little luxuries other girls her age enjoyed. While her friends bought new dresses, she wore the same two outfits, carefully washing and ironing them to maintain their neatness. While they went to restaurants and enjoyed ice cream on hot days, she saved every extra coin, making sure Osi never went hungry. Her friends, notably Talia and Meg, never failed to voice their opinions. Zane, this man will leave you once he gets what he wants. Can't you see? Talia would say. Look into his eyes and you will see what I am saying. Love should not mean suffering, Meg added. What has he even done for you? Nothing, except to make you suffer and look like his mother. But Zane always smiled. Dear friends, my OC is different. He has dreams, big dreams. And when he makes it, you all will be here to see how he will treat me because he will remember how I stood by him. Osi on his part always spoke of a bright future. One day, Zane, you will be my queen and I will be your king. We will have a very big house, drive big cars and eat whatever we want. And so she endured. Nights came. When there was barely anything to eat, she would cook a single meal and pretend not to be hungry just so Osi could have his fill. She spent her spare time ironing his worn-out clothes, making sure he looked presentable for the job interviews he was always going for but never succeeding in. She cheered him on, prayed for him and sacrificed every comfort for his sake. Then one fateful morning, everything changed. Osi came rushing into their tiny apartment, his eyes wide with excitement. Zane, baby, I got the job, he exclaimed, breathless. She dropped the bowl she was washing, her heart pounding in joy. You did? Oh, Osi, I knew it. I knew you would make it. She hugged him tightly, tears of happiness streaming down her face. The struggle was finally over, or so she thought. The first few weeks after he got the job were blissful. He took her out to a restaurant, a luxury they had never indulged in. He even bought her a dress, the first new piece of clothing she had in years. Zane thought their lives were finally turning around, but then Osi started changing. He came home later and later, sometimes not at all. His phone, which he once left lying around carelessly, was not always in his pockets. He started dressing differently, speaking differently, and worst of all, treating her differently. One evening, Zane prepared his favorite meal, stewed plantains and spicy goat meat. She set the table and waited. She waited and waited. Hours passed. The food grew cold, and just as she was about to clear the table, the door swung open. Osi walked in. He looked at the food and then at her. Zane, we need to talk, he said. Her heart skipped a bit. Is he about to propose? She asked herself. Osi sighed, running a hand through his freshly cut hair. Zane, I appreciate everything you've done for me. They are too numerous to mention. But you will believe with me that you don't fit into my class anymore. Zen couldn't believe her ears. Your what? She asked. My class, he repeated, not meeting her gaze. I have moved up now. I am in level 10 and you are still in level 1. The distance between us is apparently too much. The people I work with, the circles I move with, they are different. They are sophisticated. They won't understand someone like you. Zane stared at him, disbelief flooding her veins. Someone like me? She echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. Osi shifted uncomfortably. Zane, I need a woman who matches my status now. Someone who fits in with the kind of life I am building. You? You just can't. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For the first time in years, Zane felt like the fool her friends had warned her she would become. All the sacrifices, the love, the loyalty, it had all been for nothing. She looked around the tiny room they had shared dreams in. The place where she had starved so she could eat. The place where she had prayed for his success. Slowly, she stood up, her hands trembling but her face composed. She swallowed the lump in her throat and met his gaze with a calmness that surprised even herself. So you mean to tell me that after everything, I am now not good enough for you? She asked. Osi sighed, looking away. Zane, don't make this thing harder than it needs to be. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Harder? Osi, you already made it hard. She looked at the meal she had prepared, the meal that was there to celebrate them. Then without any word, she walked to the table, ate victoriously, picked up her bag and headed for the door, not failing to tell him to pack his bags before she returns, wishing him the very best in his new class. Osi watched, perhaps expected her to beg, to plead and to fight for what they had, but Zane didn't beg. A few months later, he lost his job. Turns out his new class didn't have patience for lazy men who spent more time picking out suits than actually working. Meanwhile, Zane had blossomed. She had taken up an opportunity to work with a wealthy businessman and had transformed her life. She traveled, she learned, she grew, and then, one fateful day, Osi sent her a message. Hey, can we talk? Zane stared at the message. She typed back, we are not in the same class anymore. Then she turned off her phone. Her life was like a blooming garden now, and each day she felt more rooted in the path she had chosen for herself. She had built a new identity, one that was no longer tender to the struggles of her past. As the months passed, she met people who respected her for who she is. Her new cycle was filled with individuals who had ambition and also had integrity. They understood the value of hard work, and Zane found herself surrounded by conversations that stimulated her, ideas that challenged her, and friendships that were genuinely supportive. One sunny afternoon, while enjoying a well-deserved break from a meeting, Zane's phone buzzed. It was another message from Osi. The message was simple but heavy with expectation. Please, can we talk? It's important. Zane stared at the message and muttered. It is the audacity for me. She simply ignored him, leaning back in her chair with a contented sigh. It wasn't out of spite. Really, it was just that she had moved on. But as the days went on, her curiosity started to nibble at her. What does Osi want? Is he really trying to reconnect? Or is he hoping for a hangout now that he had lost his way? The next day, she found herself taking a walk through the streets with a new sense of pride. She had every right to walk with her head high. She wasn't the girl who had struggled with dreams too big for her shoulders anymore. She was a woman with her own future. As she passed the familiar corner where she and Osi used to meet, memories rushed in. She could still see them there, sitting on a cracked bench, sharing a small half-burnt meal that she had painstakingly prepared from scraps. How foolish. "Zane!" a voice called out from behind. She turned to find Osi, looking untidy but still trying to keep that confident air he had once worn like a shield. You don't need to look at a dictionary for the meaning of a poor man because his shoes defined it perfectly, but he was still holding on to that pride of his. "I have been trying to get in touch. I have sent messages," he said, walking quickly to catch up with her. "I thought we could meet up and talk. Reconnect. It's been a while." Zane paused, studying him for a moment. "Kai, Zane, look at the man you were sacrificing for. Does it mean you were really classless? You were really blinded though," she muttered under her breath. This was the man who had once turned his back on her without hesitation, without even so much as an apology. She had expected a little more drama, maybe some pleading or guilt-tripping, but no. Here he was, trying to act like they were two old friends catching up. "You thought we could meet?" she finally asked, raising an eyebrow. "For what exactly? Is it for a walk down memory lane? Or maybe you just want to talk about how I was once your girl before your new class came along?" Osi winced. "Look, Zane, I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I have learned a lot over the past few months. I made some bad decisions, but things haven't been great for me. I have been struggling." Zane crossed her arms, the sarcasm rolling off her like a river. "Oh, poor Osi, struggling after all your hard work moving up the class ladder? Tell me, am I supposed to use this information to cook a pot of soup or to upgrade my class?" Osi's face flushed, but he pushed on. "Zane, I have realized that I messed up. I shouldn't have walked away. I was wrong. And I just want to make things right," he stammered. Zane's lips coiled into a smile that wasn't exactly warm. "Make things right? You mean now that I've built a life for myself, you want to be part of it? You want to make me the old version of myself so I can clean up your messes again?" Osi hesitated. I wasn't thinking clearly back then. I always cared about you, right?" Zane let out a short, wicked laugh. "Care about me? Please tell me, just in case I've forgotten. How did you care about me?" A silence settled between them. Osi unable to respond. Zane too composed to give him the satisfaction of anger. "I've got my life now," she said, taking a step back. "I don't need someone who only values me when I can serve a purpose. And as for you, well, maybe you will learn something from all of this. But just for it to be clear, it is too late for us." With that, she turned and began walking away, each step feeling like a declaration of independence. Behind her, Osi stood still watching her go, his face a mix of regret and confusion. Maybe he had thought she would be waiting, that he could pick up where they left off. But Zane had evolved into someone he would never catch up with. And as Zane walked into her future, she couldn't help but feel the tiniest bit of satisfaction. She had given him everything except the one thing he wanted most, her forgiveness. And besides, she had bigger plans now, a bright future. No more self-sacrifice, and absolutely no room for anyone who doesn't understand the value of the woman she had become. Days turned into weeks, and Zane continued to rise. She had completely immersed herself in her new life, taking on challenges with a confidence that was born from years of struggle and sacrifice. Every decision she made felt like a triumph, because for the first time she was making choices for herself, not for someone else's future. Caris, the businessman she worked with, recognized her potential early. He had become not only a mentor but a friend. Under his guidance, she started handling projects that she had once only dreamt of managing. She attended meetings in high-rise buildings, gala dinners in hotels, and even international travel. Her world was expanding, and it felt like everything was finally falling into place. But there were still moments when her thought drifted back to OC. Not because she missed him, not at all. That ship had sailed long ago. But because his sudden reappearance had triggered something in her. How could someone who had once been so close to her now feel like a stranger? She still remembered his half-hearted attempts at fixing things and how foolish he had looked, standing there like a man who had lost his way. One evening, after a particularly successful presentation, Zane was out celebrating with a few colleagues at a rooftop bar. The city lights twinkled below them and laughter filled the air. She felt like she was finally living the life she had once imagined only in her dreams. As she clicked glasses with them, a voice broke through the noise. "Zane!" She paused mid-laugh, her eyes scanning the crowd. There, standing at the entrance, was OC, looking out of place as a fish in a nest. His shirt was too tight. His shoes were crying for help. And there was a nervousness about him that hadn't been there when she was trying to impress him all those years. He saw her almost immediately, and his face lit up with a mixture of surprise and hope. He approached cautiously, like a man unsure of his welcome. "Zane!" he called again, now standing in front of her. His voice soft but filled with an unspoken question. "It's really good to see you again. I've been hearing about all the things you have been doing. You have really made something for yourself." Zane looked at him, trying to suppress the urge to roll her eyes. "Have I?" she replied. "Well, if you say so, then thank you for spitting on me. You brought me to this level. So what about you? Are you still chasing class that don't pay the bills?" OC flinched at her words, but he didn't back down. "I have learnt, Zane. I have learnt a lot. I know I messed up and I don't have the right to ask, but can we make things right again? I'm not the man I was before. I just want to make things right. I want to be part of your life again if you let me." Zane studied him for a long moment, her gaze unwavering. "Do you?" she asked, her voice calm. "Do you really want to make things right? Or are you just looking for a way back into a life you think you missed out on?" He opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. Instead, he looked down, a flicker of regret passing across his face. He had no defense, no excuse for the way he had treated her. He had once thought he could build his future alone, not realizing that dreams meant nothing without the foundation of trust and respect. Zane sighed, setting her glass down on the table. "OC, like I've told you before, I have moved on and I'm not looking back. I am definitely not looking for someone to drag me back into the past. I have worked too hard to let that happen. Let me borrow your words. I am now in level 5 and you are in level 1. Apparently, the distance between us is just too much." That was a big blow. The weight of our words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. OC opened his mouth to speak again, but before he could, Caris appeared. "Hey Zane, is everything okay?" he asked, sensing the awkwardness. Zane nodded, giving him a reassuring smile. "Yes, everything is fine. Osi and I were just catching up." Osi's eyes shifted to Karis, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. He had heard of him. Of course, the successful businessman who had taken Zane under his wing. There was no mistaking that Karis was everything Osi could never be. Confident, composed, and successful without needing to lean on others. His face reddened, and for a brief moment he seemed to shrink under Karis' steady gaze. It was as if he had been exposed for the man he truly was. Someone who had failed to recognize the value of a woman standing in front of him until it was too late. "Well, it was so good seeing you, Zane," Osi muttered, clearly uncomfortable. "I will let you enjoy your evening." He turned and walked away without looking back. His shoulders slumped and his steps slow, like someone who had been carrying a heavy burden for far too long. Zane watched him go, and a strange sense of closure washed over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Not the apology she had dreamt of, but the realization that she no longer needed it. She looked at Karis, who had been watching the entire exchange with interest. Karis chuckled. "He's not in your class anymore?" Zane shook her head, a playful smile on her lips. "Flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you." "He's definitely not." She couldn't help but feel a sense of freedom. The past, with all its sacrifices and heartbreak, was simply her past. She was ready for the future, with all its endless possibilities, and she wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Osi, take that from her. After all, in this new chapter of her life, there was no room for regrets, only room for growth, laughter, and the kind of success that came from knowing her worth. Years passed. Her life blossomed in ways even she couldn't explain. But life, in its usual way, had more surprises for her. She met Kester, an intelligent, ambitious man who never made her feel small. He was supportive without being clingy, confident without being arrogant. He admired Zane for her strength, her intelligence, and most importantly, her independence. Their connection was effortless. It wasn't the drama-filled, high-stakes kind of relationship Zane had known in the past. With Kester, everything just made sense. He had a sense of humor that matched hers, and they could spend hours talking about everything and nothing. He respected her decisions, her past, and her ambitions. He wasn't intimidated by her success. Instead, he celebrated it. One quiet evening by the lake, after a weekend of relaxing together, Kester turned to her, his eyes soft with sincerity. "Dear Zane," he said, taking her hand in his, "you have made my world better in ways I can't even explain. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Zane's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected anything grand, just something real, something that felt right. And this moment, in its quiet beauty, felt perfect. She looked into Kester's eyes, and without hesitation, she answered, "Yes, I will." The wedding wasn't a grand spectacle, no extravagance, no over-the-top decorations. It was simple, intimate, and real. It took place at a small chapel by the beach, surrounded by close friends, laughter, and love. Zane's friends, Talia and Meg, were so happy for their friend because in Kester, they saw a real man and not a parasite. As they exchanged vows, Zane realized how far she had come from the woman who once felt as though she wasn't enough. She had spent so long giving parts of her life to people who didn't appreciate her. And now, here she was, strong, loved, and ready to start the new chapter of her life. This wasn't just a marriage to Kester. It was a celebration of her own journey, her growth, and the woman she had become. Meanwhile, across town, Osi's life had taken a completely different turn. After the rejection, he found himself in a rushed relationship with a woman named Timmy, someone who appeared to tick all the right boxes. Wealthy, attractive and socially connected, she had all the outward signs of the kind of woman Osi thought he needed to be successful, and so, eager to climb the social ladder, he married her. At first, everything seemed perfect. Simi was exactly the type of woman Osi thought he wanted, but quickly, the cracks began to show. Timmy wasn't interested in a partnership. The love Osi had once hoped for, the tenderness he had taken for granted, was nowhere to be found. Timmy developed a habit of ordering him around, telling him what to cook, how to cook it, and when it needed to be done. If Osi dared to complain, he was met with disdain. One evening, after Osi had walked the whole town, he came home to find a mountain of dirty dishes waiting for him. Timmy was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, saying that she was too tired to do the dishes. Osi managed to still wash them, and exactly 8 p.m., Timmy called him with her looking up, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Darling, did you cook dinner?" Timmy, I thought maybe you could cook tonight." She barely glanced up. "But you can see that I'm still tired. Can you please organize something for us?" Kiss, kiss. Osi didn't even respond. He simply turned and walked to the kitchen, where he spent the next 2 hours slaving over a meal that in his heart he knew wasn't going to be appreciated. The entire time he cooked, he couldn't stop thinking about Zane. The way she had been supportive, kind, and always willing to share her love and her space without demanding anything in return. It wasn't just about food, it was about respect. He missed her. He missed her calmness, her patience, and the way she made him feel like he was worth something, no matter what. But of course, by the time he realized this, it was too late. Zane had long moved on, building a life that didn't require him. A life full of love and laughter that had no place for the self-centered, neglectful man he had been. His marriage to Timmy continued on a downward spiral. She treated him with increasing disdain, expecting him to be the perfect husband while offering nothing in return. She was never satisfied with anything he did. Even when he made an elaborate meal, it wasn't the right kind of meal. Osi became the man who cooked, cleaned, and bent to her every opinion. The idea of equality, of love, was long gone. He was simply a tool, and Timmy wasn't shy about reminding him of that fact. One lonely evening, Osi sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone. He came across a post about Zane's wedding. There she was, radiant as ever, standing next to Kester, their smiles wide and genuine. She was happy, truly happy, and Osi felt a pang of regret so deep it was almost physical. He had once had everything he needed in her, but now he was left with nothing but a woman who couldn't even acknowledge his efforts. As he sat there alone in his kitchen, the weight of his mistakes settled on his shoulders. He missed Zane terribly, but there was nothing he could do now. She was gone, and he had let her slip away because he had been too wrapped up in his own selfish ambitions. And unfortunately, he will never meet anyone like Zane again. Hey, African Tales by Kama Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. I hope you learned one or two from this story because they are life lessons for us to learn, either as a man or as a woman. Before I go today, I would like to say this. Know your worth and do not settle for less. If someone is holding you back or making you feel less than you are, it is time to stop trying to prove yourself and tell yourself that you deserve better. Never settle for a relationship, job, or situation that doesn't respect or value you. Your happiness is worth more than any temporary comfort. Change isn't as scary as staying stuck in a place that makes you feel small. If you are afraid of taking a step forward, remember that staying in the same place will keep you stagnant, while change gives you the opportunity to grow into the person you are meant to be. Don't let fear of the unknown hold you back from something better. Sometimes, walking away is the most empowering thing you can do. Leaving a situation where you are not being treated well is an act of self-love and self-respect. If someone doesn't appreciate your effort, time or love, walking away shows them, and more importantly shows you, that you won't accept being undervalued. You can't build a future with someone who doesn't see your worth, and that's a powerful realization. Make yourself your priority. If you are constantly putting others' needs before your own and losing yourself in the process, remember, your happiness isn't selfish. Take the time to invest in your own dreams, goals, and well-being. When you prioritize yourself, everything else will fall into place. Lastly, sometimes it's not about who you are leaving behind. It's about what you are choosing to work towards too. And that's the kind of boldness and clarity that will truly lead to a happier and healthier future. I don't know why I keep saying this in my recent stories, but a word is enough for the wise. Please give the story a thumbs up and share out to your loved ones. If you have not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? If you love what Kama is doing and you wish to support me, kindly use the link on my bio to buy me coffee, or you can as well buy me a super thanks. Until I bring another amazing story your way, it is a goodbye from here, and God bless you.